Hello and welcome to part C of the 1947 Chevrolet car radio. I had planned on making this the last in the series. You know what they say about making plans. I figured I could knock out, the alignment and get a few things done in about 35 minutes and get it edited and be done. When all was said and done and I sat down to do editing last night around midnight, I had well over an hour of video. And to make things even worse, I had problems. Every time I reached in here to do alignment with the camera over my shoulder, the camera's right here, I couldn't get near the radio without it just going into this raucous, buzzing, horrible racket sound because of the damn Chinesium power supply or battery eliminator that the camera's running on. So it was getting late, and in my frustration I reached up quickly and punched the off button and yanked the plug out of the camera. Well, the camera hadn't shut down yet, so I found out that the whole first 25 minutes or 20 minutes or so of me working on the alignment were just gone. It corrupted the SD card. So I took a deep breath, a very deep breath, and I went back over to the computer and I just said, we're not going to get stressed over this. We're going to slow down, take a deep breath. If I have to make 2 or 3 more videos to finish this up correctly, we're going to do it. And I'm glad I did, because I did some research and I went sniffing around and found out that this radio, its design dates back to 1942. This radio is the same circuit, same guts, just about the same everything that was in 1942. And of course, going into the war years, they wouldn't have done any development or made any changes, so this radio carried right on through to 1947. But in the 1942 information, I found all the information on the voltages. So that made me happy. Now we can go in here and verify things that, I was pretty sure about, but you always like to have the engineer's input on this. And you remember I said that the voltage B plus looked low. This clock calls for 264, and I've actually reached 260, and you'll see that in this video. This is like, I've already been through all of this, and I've got the video partially edited. But I've got to go back and cut it up and take out the wrong pieces and spread things out. And not the wrong pieces, but try to put it in a more sensible order. And we'll go back and revisit the alignment, because you didn't get to see any of that because I corrupted the file. So we'll go back and touch on that. And I've been in touch with Tom, the owner, and he sent me a picture of a couple of cars he's working on. And I have serious car envy. I don't know if he wants me to put them up on the internet or not, so I won't without his permission, but I have serious car envy. But he is looking for, and I wrote it down on one of these pieces of paper. Oh, here it is. He's looking for a radio for a 1948 Oldsmobile. So if anybody out there has a line on a 48 Olds radio so he can do that restoration, he'd be eternally grateful. I can put you guys in touch with one another. And in talking to him, he told me to go ahead, order the vibrator, the solid state vibrator. He said, do to that what you would do to yours. So we are going to order the solid state vibrator, and I'm going to look around for another speaker. This one's dragging the voice coil. I don't know if you can hear that or not. There's bubbles all over here. It probably isn't showing up on the camera, but the speaker cone's all bubbled here. I'm thinking it got wet. In fact, I can see water stains over here. This thing got wet at some point and warped the cone. If I push down on this side, it's quiet. If I drag the voice coil in this direction, I can try moistening the thing and see if I can move it. And if that doesn't work, I've got an eye on some, please forgive me, I found some Ford 5x7s online that are 4 ohm, the correct impedance and the right size, that some guy pulled out of a car. And if the bidding doesn't get crazy, I'll grab those and put one in here. You know, be the same size speaker, the same impedance. It'll have a bigger magnet on it, of course. Trying to find a 5x7 speaker that isn't designed for, you know, 357 watts or whatever. These radios only ran 4 watts of audio, and you don't need some speaker that's designed for one of these modern digital amplifiers. It's pumping out, you know, 80, 90 watts per channel. All I need is a simple 5x7. But we'll see if we can play with this one and maybe shrink the cone up one way or another. And Tom said, you know, do to it what you do to it. So I said, well, what I would do to this, because it's got rust all over it, I would sand it down. And I don't have any General Motors colored paint, but I can pick up some Rust-Oleum. I've got gray here, but I could probably find something closer to this color in what they call a hammered finish. And the hammered finish hides a lot of sins, a lot of the rust pits and stuff that just disappear with the hammered finish on it. So if I can find something close to that brownish tan color, whatever, gold color, I don't know what to call that. What would you call that? I don't know. We'll sand it down and we'll put some Rust-Oleum on there anyway to pretty it up a little bit. Take care of that for him. And Tom, if you're watching, I'm assuming you're going to be changing all of the door seals and so on and so forth. Check with your supplier and see if they also make the rubber for around the speaker grill on these old radios, because this is pretty dry rotted. You can see here it's falling apart, and it would be nice to take this off, sand this thing down, and give it a proper coat of paint, but I will, I'm sure, end up destroying this by the process of removing it. So let me know what you want to do about that. Like I say, you've probably been in contact with somebody about door seals and window seals for those cars anyway, and I'm wondering if that same supplier might have this piece of rubber, or a recreation of that piece of rubber. And in further news, I don't think I ever showed anybody the final product here on the Traveler radio. And you can see here what it used to look like when I brought it in-house. And here's what we have today. I'm pretty happy with that. I think that came out great, if I do say so myself. There's a couple little nicks in there, but that's right through the bakelite, and I'm fine with that. We put a decent looking grill cloth in there. I don't know how well the camera is going to show that up, but we got a nice looking grill cloth in there that matches the pattern that came out, and it plays well. And this little set, a lot of times when I'm upstairs at night, you know, digging through documentation or whatever, I turn this thing on and listen to it. I hate talk radio, but it's just so much fun listening to this thing. It works so nicely. So, with all of that crap said and out of the way, we'll jump back into where I picked up working on this guy, and I'll try to piece together some decent footage out of what was, or what survived on the camera. And how's that for an intro? So, see you on the other side. Hello, and welcome to the third and hopefully final installment of the 1947 Chevrolet car radio resurrection, shall we call it. And as I do this, I'm reminded that there's something I haven't mentioned in a while, and it bears repeating. As you pull out these paper capacitors, you'll note there's a band on one end, and it actually says outside foil. Now, I know a lot of you already know this, but the regulars, just be patient for a minute. This is not polarity. These capacitors are not polarity sensitive. They're not electrolytics. They really don't care whether it's positive or negative on either end. What that represents is the outside wrap of the foil of this capacitor. This one comes from the inside wraps. This is going to be shielded where this end is not. So this wants to go to the high impedance part of your circuit. This wants to go to the low impedance part of your circuit. For example, coming from our first audio amp, we have our anode, which comes down, goes through the 001, and goes to the grid of the 6V6. Now, the grid is a very high impedance part of the circuit, very susceptible to noise pickup. So the capacitor would be installed in this orientation, with the outside foil on the low impedance end and the center being connected to the grid or the high impedance end. And that was great back in the day when they all were marked outside foil. Sadly today, in today's PCB board world, all of these orange drops and all of these Mylars aren't marked, or if they have a band like this one does, it's a 50-50 shot as to whether that's the outside foil or not. It doesn't seem to have any meaning on these modern orange drop capacitors. And I even questioned the person I bought these from, or the lady I buy these from. She works for Sprague, and she just had a puzzled look on her face like, I don't know, it's just a marking. So what we do is we use our oscilloscope, and I'm going to pinch this capacitor, I'm going to touch the center, and I'm going to ground the other end, and note the height of the waveform. Then I'm going to reverse the capacitor, I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to do that again, and you see how much larger it is? Now it's very big. That means this end that I've marked with a marker is the outside foil. There's more pickup from my hand. Excuse me. I'll turn it around again. I'll put that conductor in the center, and I'm going to ground this side. And you see how much smaller the noise signature is? That's because I'm now putting the shielded side to ground and the high impedance side to the input on the scope. And I mark it with a marker. Now these, you would think that's the outside foil. No, it's not. It's not even marked correctly, or it's not, it doesn't have any meaning, I guess, for these capacitors. Because if I stick this, just touch there and go over here, you can see there's almost no noise signature. If I turn it around, you can see the noise pickup on that side. This is the outside foil. So bear that in mind when you're recapping. Probably 90% of the time it won't make any difference. But in a set like this 1947 car radio that's got a vibrator running and all kinds of high impulse noise signatures going on everywhere inside the thing, you want to try to maintain that outside foil relationship just for shielding purposes. Okay, I'm going to continue on with recapping here. So, what are we going to do next? Well, since his vibrator is absolutely dead, where did I put the thing? Here it is. I'm going to try opening it up and cleaning the points. It's junk anyway. And we'll see if we can dress the points up and maybe rescue it for a while and save him a few dollars in the short term anyway. So let me, actually, you know what, I'm going to stick this back in the set temporarily, now that the set's up and going, and just see if we can get any activity out of it, and if not, we'll open it up. So let me get things organized, and we'll get on. I plugged in your vibrator, turned on the radio, and the current draw was immediately up around 12 amperes and no vibrator action. So this is dead, absolutely dead. So we're going to go Big Clive on this and use unreasonable force and just open it up. And see if there's any chance of resurrecting this at all. Now, I've done this in the past, like I said earlier, and cleaned up the points and got them to run for a while. And this is all in the interest of saving you a few bucks in the near term. Down the road, again, I strongly urge you to purchase one of the solid state units. They're going to be a lot less dependent on that 0.5 capacitor that's down inside the transformer. They're going to have a smoother waveform. It's still going to be pretty abrupt, but it won't be as bad as the arcing and sparking that goes on with the vibrator points. Now let's see. Let me drop the camera down a little bit and get some light in here. Okay, down inside here, I don't know how clear or obvious this is going to be. Here we go. There's a lot of foam rubber and a lot of evidence that this thing's been showering hot sparks around. You can see all the blackened rubber in there. Some of that may be due to age, but here's our vibrator. Here's the business end, and again, rubber mounted. It's all in the interest of trying to keep it quiet. Here we have the core of our electromagnet, and you can see it's offset from the center of this weight. So what happens is when you power this thing up, the transformer is going to, the power is going to go through the transformer, through this coil, and it's going to energize and pull the weight in this direction. When it does, it shorts this set of points, which de-energizes the electromagnet. The weight's going to swing back. This set of points will make contact. And then the weight will come forward, the magnet will pull it back this direction, and that process just continues back and forth. But as I move the weight, I can see that the points are not opening at all. They're welded shut, completely welded shut, and there's a lot of evidence that this thing has really been hot. Now they're going to get hot anyway because of the arcing, but I suspect because the heater circuit was tied in, that this coil never had a chance to de-energize, and it just sat there and cooked the points because, well, there was constantly power flowing through the transformer and through that heater, and it basically disabled the vibrator. So let's see if we can break the points loose. Wow, they're really stuck. Okay, that one opened up. That one opened up. I am going to run a little bit of emery paper in there. You got to be careful. The gap on here is critical. We may or may not be successful at this, but I suspect that the heating has distorted the points. In fact, let me get the ohm meter and see if those points are actually closed or open at this point. Alright, as I'm playing with this thing, I can't even get the points to open. There's partial contact right there, and if I push it hard, it finally opens up, but I've really got to lean on that reed. This is the one with the coil. And it never goes open. It's always closed as well. So let me burnish these things up and see if we can make this thing run. As I dig into this thing, the rubber down here is still pretty good, but everywhere it was around here has been melted, literally just melted. And I've been having to pick off the melted rubber So this thing was drawing a lot of current. Let's see if we can take it apart and clean things up a little bit. I don't hold out a lot of hope for this, but we'll see what we can do. There, now I've loosened up. I can get between the points and burnish them up a little bit. Let's see what it looks like. They're pretty cooked. In fact, there's hardly anything left on that contact at all. Yeah, let me burnish it up and see what happens. But I don't hold out a lot of hope for this. I think this is history. I guess I forgot, or I didn't hit the button hard enough to record. It is vibrating. It's less than ideal, but it may get him up and running enough at this point. These have a very finite life and produce a lot more hash and noise than the solid state unit will. Yeah, I guess I can get that to plug in. Where's my negative lead? There it is. Let's just make sure before I plug this in. It's running. Let's see what happens when we plug it in. Okay, we've got the mangled case crammed into the socket. Let's see what happens. Oh, I hear noise. And it's considerably louder because a lot of the rubber damping is gone.
14-year-old boy. The puberty impact just among other boys, like it makes me think even more about these girls that are having to swim against biological men. I mean, just coaching Little League. Anybody out there who knows?
Where's the voltmeter? Oh, it's way over there. Yeah, we use this one. See what we've got for B+. Now, 225 volts, so we got plenty of B+ coming out of it.
We bring a ruckus to Fauci, please.
Yeah. You can hear it's pretty noisy.
See them all over again forever. You got a box of video cassettes, film reels, hundreds of pictures, all piled up someplace. This is where Legacy Box is most helpful.
But we're pulling 5.5 amps, which is just about where it was with the other unit in it, because I've booted the voltage up to 7 volts, which is actually closer to what the charging system in the car will do. Your 12 volt system is 13.8 and your 6 volt system runs close to 7 when it's charging.
Your family items are returned to you. Buck, how do we hook everybody up?
And as you can hear, the vibrator's noisy, but it is functional. That's all vibrator hash.
Manchester's source for news. News radio.
And it's not a big deal to change them. It's a 4-pin unit. You have 2 fat pins and 2 skinny pins. Just take a pair of channel locks and grab a hold of the unit that's in there and pluck it out. And when you put the new one in, make sure you've got the 2 large pins lined up with the 2 large holes in the socket and push it home and you're in business.
Rain or during the holidays, when you're sending more mail and messages, whether you're selling online or running an office, Stamps.com.
And we have the we've fixed your dial here. We should be able to preset stations. Actually, I should leave it on. Just so you know how to work the presets, they're a bit of a pain in the butt. You tune the radio to the station you want the preset to be at, and then you have to flip the knob up and this will pop out. Loosen it about 2 turns, then push it back underneath and push the button in, and then pop this up again, tighten it, and then put it back underneath, and now your preset is set. It'll be there every time. Right back to where it was.
Contract. Just go to stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, and enter code USA.
News Radio 610 and 96.7.
Hi, this is Chris Ryan. If you missed our conversations with Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, Pete Buttigieg, or Cory Booker, tune in to Best of New Hampshire today, beginning Monday at 6 a.m. here on News Radio 610 and 96.7. We're back with you live on Wednesday.
So go to that end.
Weekdays here on News Radio 610 and 96.7. I am Chris Ryan.
So the buttons are working now.
Don't you dare miss it.
New Hampshire Today with Chris Ryan on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
If you have erectile dysfunction, it's like... Oh. Well, for Northeast Men's Health, and I can confidently say that we're the best.
I think we can try and swing the oscillator and get 610 down where it belongs.
On the severity of your ED, different treatment protocols may be required. But a sound wave only practice isn't going to offer treatment.
So let's see if we can figure that out. Okay, you're going to love this one. While I'm tracing out the wiring to figure out the alignment, I noticed that two of the tubes in here, the RF amp and the IF amp, both 6SK7s, are labeled General Motors, so they're probably original. So I figured, what the heck, I've got the tube tester sitting right here. I'll pull the tubes out and check them. And I'd already pulled the rectifier out and the vibrator, because to preserve what little sanity I have left, I was going to run it directly from my DC supply when I did the alignment, just to eliminate all the hash from the vibrators, because neither one of them are very healthy. And I figured, to heck with it, I'll throw the 6X5 rectifier in here and see how it tests. And you're going to love this. There's two heaters in this tube. This one's lit. This side is not. You can see only one heater is lit. So that means this thing's been running on a half-wave rectifier instead of a full-wave rectifier the whole time we've been playing with it. And that explains why the voltage is so much lower than I expected to see. Now this must be an early unit. This came out of the tube. In fact, when I cleaned it up, the number wiped off it. It's what's left of it's here. You can see it's got two separate anodes inside and two separate heaters. That's a very early version. Most of the later ones were built in this configuration with a single heater, and there's actually two anodes. What they do is they cup around the common cathode like so. So this is still a full wave rectifier. I don't know if you can see the split down there between the anodes, but this has an anode on this side and an anode on this side. Or a lot of them were in this configuration. This is also a 6X5. Single heater, single long cathode, and two anodes. So this is a pretty early version, I believe. And the doggone thing has got a dead heater. So we're going to replace that, and I bet we see a big jump in our B+ voltage. Just figured I'd show you that. Tested all the rest of your tubes. The RF amp and the IF amplifier, genuine GM tubes, are as good as the day they left the factory. GM, like a rock. The oscillator is fine. Yeah. The oscillator detector is fine. Your oscillator modulator converter tube is fine. Blech. The detector first audio, the two detector plates look like they're brand new. The audio preamp, however, the triode section is pretty weak. However, that'll run like that for years. There's no need to worry about it. We have plenty of audio I wouldn't worry about that tube. The 6V6 is 95%, so perfect. The only tube that was actually bad was this 6X5 rectifier, and I never noticed one of the filaments out, but or one of the heaters was out. So we were only running half-wave protection. So I'm going to put my vibrator back in it, and we have a good 6X5 in there now, and we'll find out what the B plus voltage is really all about. But I've got to go back now and finish tracing out the circuitry and figure out which adjustments which. And, okay, with the new rectifier in there, we're at almost, well, 255. Yeah, almost 260 volts when the AGC drops.
Some signs to look at. Look at Florida, for example. Their kids have been in person learning.
I'm going to move the camera back.
2020. And we've not had this major outbreak of kids dying from COVID.
Yeah. The signal down here, I'm down in the basement lab, and I think it's evident that that rectifier has made a big difference, not only in the voltage,
in my head at this whole scenario,
but in the amount of audio we can get out of it.
Appreciate the call, Chris.
Hi, good. Nice to talk to you, Sean. So I'm calling in regards to the vaccine mandate. I'm an emergency room nurse. I work.
So, I'm going to proceed now. We're going to get on with the alignment, but it was obvious that that tube was bad. I just can't believe I didn't notice half the heater was out. So we've replaced that. Your other tubes are fine. My vibrator's in there at the moment. What I'm going to do, I've got the speaker now mounted remote so that I'm not tripping over it all the time. I'm going to pull the vibrator. I'm going to pull the rectifier. Now that we know it's about 260 volts, I'm going to put 250 volts DC from a clean power source so that when I'm aligning it,
Correct.
You don't have
we're not struggling to hear the alignment tone over all that racket. And again, that's vibrator noise. The radio's not shielded, so let me get hooked up and we'll continue on. I'm going to end this one here. We're half an hour in, and I have to redo all of the video about the alignment anyway, and I want to do that proper justice, or at least do it in a coherent manner. After losing all that footage, I tried to patch stuff together, and it was a mishmash. So we'll fix that up. I don't know how long it's going to take for the vibrator to get here. I'll probably do a video on the alignments. It'd be rather short, and then I'll take this out and do some work, paint on. I'll take everything out of here, paint this. And when the vibrator comes back in, we'll give you a rundown of how it sounds with the new vibrator, and hopefully by then I'll have a new speaker in here as well. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Appreciate my viewers, and see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.